we looked at, I don't know if you've seen this floating around on Twitter, but they've analyzed like the Myers-Briggs personality types.
Exactly what I had in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're like, Bitcoiners are very overrepresented in the INTJ and ENTJ categories.
Yeah.
I'm an INTJ.
Same.
So surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
And then there's certain Myers-Briggs combinations where there's 0% representation basically. And yeah, that's a really big deal. So we're talking about, I mean, there's an echo chamber component to this, right? Like the people that get it sort of speak in the language that the other people that get it also speak. And then it helps, it does grow, but it could be more, and I hate that language has been so co-opted now. Like there could be ways to make it more inclusive. I don't mean this in a DEI sense. I just mean like speaking the language of people that don't get Bitcoin to help them get Bitcoin, which is sort of like what you've done with the video here.
It's exactly what I was trying to do.
So like in addition to this, which are like custom artistic educational pieces, I would assume we could also build businesses that would bring people, it could orange pill people sort of implicitly or indirectly.
Yeah.
Like how do you think about the orange pilling of the human race? Like what we need to keep doing the education piece, but what can we do like in the business building domain?
I think you have to do all these things in parallel rather than necessarily sequentially. But I would frame it, before answering that specifically on the businesses, I'd frame it thinking about the adoption of Bitcoin for the general population as sort of having 3 stages. And I'm not necessarily focused on whether it's store value or medium of exchange, because that's a different dimension. It's more just sort of the engagement with the population. And one is awareness. And I think Bitcoin's done pretty well on the awareness for something that doesn't have a marketing department.
Yeah, it's amazing.
No CEO, nothing. I think you'd struggle to find someone who hadn't heard of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly in the West. Yeah. And that's like near 100% penetration. And
you could possibly call it the most successful meme of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go into the distant past and obviously find some more effective examples, right? Like I don't know, just modern memes, I'd say it's probably the most successful of all time. Now, I guess that's subject to debate, but it's done extremely well for not having any
zero paid marketing,
centralized backing whatsoever. Yeah.
And so if you've got near 100% awareness, more or less, then the next stage is to get someone to use it is understanding.
Yeah.
You can be aware of something, but have no clue what it is or any way to have any mental framework for understanding why it's relevant. Right? That is the piece that we're struggling with. If you can solve that piece, it then just becomes a product positioning. Is it cool? Is it what my friends are doing? Is it whatever? But that's severely inhibited by the second piece. So we've got to help people get a even superficial understanding of Bitcoin to start with as quickly as possible in the broadest possible way. Now, it doesn't have to be explaining how the Fed works or any of these things. It can just be, there's a big red button, they press it, and it affects me negatively.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is the answer.
Yeah.
And I know all these problems are because of the big red button. Like that is a tick in that middle box. So you're aware of it. You now have an understanding broadly of how it's helpful to you. And then now you've got the motivation, maybe not the access, or you're not sufficiently motivated to engage, but you're open to it. Right. And then that's the execution piece. Right. But we can't do that until we really built this out a bit more. And so hopefully the video helps with this middle piece. But as far as taking that and then thinking about businesses, and this comes back also to the personality distribution type and wanting to put the gradually suddenly into the real world. The people who arrive during the suddenly period, they will use what everybody is using. they won't necessarily understand why. They won't understand what it is, what's so special about Bitcoin. They won't understand the 99% of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They'll just use it because that's just what you do.
Yeah.
And the way that we unlock that is to integrate Bitcoin into everyday life in a way that people don't have to know how it works. Right? You cannot do that right now. You cannot do that, even with the sort of the consumer applications that we have, and they're very few within Bitcoin outside of wallets. They still require a certain amount of knowledge or skill or context or motivation being a Bitcoiner to use. Like, you wouldn't use those applications unless you were a Bitcoiner to start with, or a fan of privacy or something. Like, there's some small niche versus the whole population motivation as to why you use these things, but which is great for early adoption, early support from the community. So everyone will want to use the app, want to help you succeed, but it immediately caps the success of it. Right. Because you can't break out into something else.
It's a microculture.
Yeah. And so what we need those breakout applications where people use them not because it's Bitcoin. Right. But it has Bitcoin in them. And if we can find those applications where people would use them anyway, they are winning business models. And it's rational for people to use them. And as a consequence of using them, they get sats in their pocket. It's almost game over. Because we know what happens when you get sats in your pocket. You start to look at the price. Your ears start to prick up when you hear Bitcoin. You then read you don't watch a podcast. You read a book, and then
I always say, where your money goes, your mind follows.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't take a lot. No. But it needs to be there, and it needs to be reliably there and accessible without any pre-existing knowledge, right? And that's the missing gap on the business side. So if we can find ways to do the education, bring people up, get that in front of as many people as possible, get them to the starting line, right? That's one thing. We can also build businesses that put sats in the pocket of everybody, and they don't have to know what they are, but just know that they're valuable and therefore be interested in Bitcoin. That's a winning combination if we can do those two things. And so so when they're in people's pockets, you're saying people just start to see the price moving, and then their curiosity starts to follow the rabbit hole. Yeah. Naturally. You're just... Yeah. But you would use the applications. Yeah. You would use those businesses not because it's got Bitcoin in. Of course. It's incidental. Right. This is so interesting because it's Hayek's sly roundabout way to take the state's hands out of money, right? Or to take money away from the state. You're proposing something similar by some sly roundabout way. We introduce people to Bitcoin without being explicit about it. Like, here's some other value proposition that you find useful. Oh, by the way, on the back end, this thing is using Bitcoin somehow, or paying you in Bitcoin, or whatever it may be. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.